Hi, it's Sally-Shakti, your star priestess and visionary writing guide, and welcome to Tarot and Astrology for Visionary Writers for this Aquarius full moon in August 2024. So this really feels like it's going to be an explosive, powerful, revolutionary, transformative, and radical full moon. We've had the energy building, especially through Leo season, and especially since the Leo new moon, where we've had this evolutionary drive towards greater sovereignty and reclaiming the power that had been taken from our ancestors, the connection with the land, our connection with our own inner resources and sovereignty. And there have been ways in which those of us who have been doing the healing work have been feeling that, experiencing that, embodying that. And those who have not have been enacting that from a place of re-traumatization, shadow, and really so much of that has been playing out on national, international, global stages. It's what also tends to get the spotlight in the mainstream media. This full moon will illuminate. The full moon will always illuminate the shadows. It's an opposition essentially between the sun and the moon. So the full moon will always illuminate what is in shadow. Often I talk about that from a personal perspective. It's usually bringing up our own personal shadows so that we can see them, meet them, acknowledge them, and integrate them for our own healing and release. And ultimately, that's the path of the alchemist. That's the path of our alchemical transformation. When we are able to, as I often talk about with journaling, meet ourselves on the page with courage and compassion, see who we truly are, acknowledge the stories, the narratives, the self-beliefs, the limiting beliefs that we have carried and inherited and perpetuated in the world, and then being able to meet ourselves with love. When we meet ourselves on the page in our journaling with compassion, the true alchemy is that ability to hold ourselves in our wholeness with compassion, with love, acknowledging our shadows, acknowledging our weaknesses, the limiting beliefs that we've held, the limiting beliefs that we've inherited, that perhaps our ancestors had to carry for their own survival and for our own survival into this time. And now we are here at this transformational threshold. One of our most powerful purposes is to meet ourselves on the page with the full compassion of being able to acknowledge the wholeness of who we are, shadow and light, because that's where the healing, the integration, the release, the transformation can happen in that space of becoming our own compassionate witness. We become the divine. That is that space of alchemy, that ground of compassionate witness and the holding. When I think of that alchemy, and I'm thinking also of the Shiva Shakti dance, we have Shiva as the ground of compassionate holding, the ground, the compassionate witness that holds Shakti in her dance of arising and co-creating and manifesting. So when we are able to, through our own journaling, become the compassionate witness to our own dance of manifestation and creating in this world, when we're able to hold the fullness of what we have believed, what we have perpetuated, what we've participated in, what our ancestors have carried forward, what is going on in this world, because it's all connected. That's not to make ourselves responsible for other people's behaviors and actions, but to know that what we see mirrored in the collective is a part of all of us. It's a fractal, it's a web where we are seeing reflected in the collective the unconscious playing out, mostly of the shadows and the traumas that have been unacknowledged. The more we can deepen into our own practice and be present with our own shadows, our own traumas, our own stories, all the light, all the shadow that we are, the more we can heal and integrate and become a greater and greater part of the web of light that is forming and spreading and being co-created by all of us through the work that we do. And an even more powerful step, perhaps, with that is to share our stories with others so that they can see themselves reflected. They can see the transformation that's possible. They can see the alchemy that we have been through, and they can embark on that journey themselves, or even seek our help and advice to support them through that process. That's when we become the guide, the mentor. That's when we complete that full cycle of the heroine's journey from the descent into the underworld, through the shadows, integrating, healing, releasing, alchemizing, and then becoming, first of all, our own guide, our own witness, our own guide out back into the world of connections, and then becoming a guide for others to support their transformation and to inspire their healing and their growth on their journey. So this full moon, as all full moons do, will illuminate the shadows personally and collectively. It will be bringing them to the surface. And this is an explosive full moon, but it has a lot of potential for radical transformation and chaos and change. This full moon is ruled by Uranus, the planet of chaos and change. Uranus in Taurus currently is bringing chaos and change to our earth, to our economic stability, to our economic structures and systems, bringing chaos and change to things that don't want to be changed, but we know that they need to be changed. This full moon in Aquarius is ruled by that energy of transformational change. Uranus comes to us from the future and shakes up our present so that we can become the higher versions of ourselves, the more evolved versions of ourselves. We can become who we are here to be. We can become who we are in the process of becoming. Uranus brings that change about very quickly, very unexpectedly. Not only is this full moon ruled by Uranus in Taurus, but both the sun and the moon are in an exact square to Uranus in Taurus at the time of the full moon. So we have the full moon and we have these two exact squares. We've got an exact square from the moon to Uranus in Taurus, an exact square from the sun to Uranus in Taurus. So that is a really powerful energy. Transformation needs to break through. The old systems are ready to dissolve, and we will see more of that dissolving, more of that destruction, more of that destabilization, perhaps both in ourselves and in the world that we see around us. Remember that we are collectively responsible for creating and co-creating the world that we want to see. The more that we work on ourselves, the more that we can contribute to a changing world. Uranus is going to be stirring that up. And with this tension, this opposition, we have the opposition between the sun and the moon, illuminating the shadows. We have the square to Uranus. It is really going to create that tension that cracks open to bring about change. We also have Mercury squaring Uranus on the same day. So that again is bringing about changes in communication, changes in the way that we think, changes, revolutionizing the way that we go about our daily lives. Mercury currently retrograding back through Leo will have 3 connections with Uranus in this square. So this is the second. And when it goes direct again, it's going to come back and square Uranus again. So this will be the chaos, the undoing. And then when it comes back forward again and meets with Uranus again the next time, I can look up the date of that if you give me a second, that will help us to begin to restructure our lives and our world from this new radical foundation, radically new foundation. Let me just see if I can find, okay, Uranus, Mercury. That looks like 7th of September. So on the 7th of September, Mercury is going to come back through and square Uranus again. And that may give us in Virgo season then the opportunity to rebuild new structures from the destabilized chaos that is unfolding. It's not too long to wait, but it will only be the beginning of that part of the process that we've really been in since 2020 and will continue to be in until 2026. And of course, that evolutionary picture can always be much longer and wider, depending on the nuances of how we look at it. But just focusing on this particular full moon in Aquarius, what else do we have going on? We have got, let's also talk, whilst we're still speaking of Uranus, let's talk about Uranus also sextiling Neptune in Pisces, Neptune in the last degrees of Pisces. Neptune is undoing. Neptune is undoing, taking us to the end of our karmic cycle and letting go in Pisces. We've got a sextile with Uranus. We've got support there. Uranus is the chaos that Uranus is instigating and inciting is supporting Neptune in that undoing process of the old structures, the old ways, those Piscean energies that are coming to a close, the age of patriarchy coming to a close, dissolving through Neptune's watery energy, really bringing that into dissolve and dissolution. We have Uranus trining Pluto in Aquarius by just a few degrees there. Uranus trining Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Again, Uranus is really on a mission this full moon to support all the other planets in their processes of undoing, destabilizing, and bringing down the old narratives, the old structures. Remember, we have those narratives inside us. They've been embedded in us. They've been encoded in us. We were born into them. It's going to affect us personally as well as collectively. And we can contribute to that through our own practices of introspection and also through the ways that you personally might feel to be involved with the wider picture. For me, one of the most powerful medicines, one of the most powerful ways that we can contribute, as I mentioned, is to share our truth, to share our stories, and to inspire hope for others, and to become part of that weaving of a new web of light that is here, that is growing, that is spreading, and that is becoming more and more of the reality of this world. And we may not see that showing up in our mainstream media. They're going to keep shining the spotlight on the shadows. Not that that's particularly useful in the way that they do it, because the way that they do it keeps it in people's consciousness in a way that continues to perpetuate those shadows. We can also work with that illumination in ourselves to illuminate the shadows, to become the compassionate witness for ourselves and others, and to continue to contribute to the weaving of a new creation. We have Saturn very active in this Aquarius new moon. Saturn squaring both Jupiter and Mars. So that's Saturn in Pisces, squaring Jupiter and Mars in Gemini. Again, we've got that sense of Saturn telling us it's time for change, it's time for revolutionary action. But Mars and Jupiter in Gemini, perhaps showing us that part of the way that we take revolutionary action at this time is to work with our own thoughts, thinking, narratives, stories. What are the webs that we have been, what's a really great word for, casting, that's it, casting. What are the webs that we have been casting with our own words, our self-talk, our narratives, our beliefs? What are our beliefs about the world? What beliefs do we see reflected back to us about the world? And how can we integrate the light and the shadow, like the Gemini, the duality? How can we integrate what we're seeing with where we know with what we know we are creating, without bypassing the reality of what is? Because as these shadows are becoming more and more illuminated, there is an increase in violence and instability in the world. And that is part of the shadow playing itself out. And our work here and now is to be witnesses to the process in ourselves and in others. So I think those are the main aspects that I really want to talk about with this Aquarius full moon. I really encourage you to be with your journal, to be present with what stories are playing out in you personally, and the stories that you are being guided to become a witness to globally, internationally. This is a powerful time for transition and change, and being the healing vessels for those narratives to shift through our own self-reflection in our journals, and through sharing our own stories and transformation and healing, and through witnessing the stories of others in their change and transformation, is really a big part of the service that I feel we are being called into right now. Our card for this week is the Two of Swords. We're really being asked not to judge. We step into that energy. Judgment and discernment are two different energies. Discernment is essential. Discernment helps us and supports us to create and maintain strong boundaries. And that's especially important right now, because as empaths especially, we need clear boundaries between ourselves and others. What is ours and what is not? Which stories are we carrying to work with, and which stories are beyond our control? So discernment and boundaries are essential, but judgment as an energy can bring us into our own shadows, can bring us into our own habitual beliefs and behaviors about ourselves and other people that often puts us into a position of superiority. This Two of Swords is really asking us not to be in judgment at this time, but to really remain the compassionate witness to ourselves and others as we move collectively through this powerful time of deep change and transformation. It's asking us, inviting us to move forward intuitively and instinctively. Two of Swords suggests sometimes an inner conflict, a duality in our mental energies. Like we have this strong, close connection between Jupiter and Mars that have just recently been exactly conjunct in Gemini. They're still within degrees of each other. They're still in conjunction, in a wider conjunction. that energy of Jupiter amplifying Mars in Gemini, amplifying the need and the desire to judge others, to project outwards, to blame, or to take on inner conflict, indecision. Two of Swords invites us to set our swords down, move forward with that cover across our eyes, because our eyes often can lead us straight back into the mental faculties, the mental energies. What happens if we feel our way forward with our eyes closed? What happens if we listen to our intuition instead of our mind? What happens if we move from our bodies instinctively, animalistically, instead of trying to judge, compare, blame, shame even others or ourselves? Can we, for this period and through this portal of this Aquarius full moon, put down our swords, let go of our judgment, really come into the silence where we're not projecting onto others, we're not creating that split within ourselves. Essentially, when we project our blame and shame onto others, creates a split within ourselves. How can we reintegrate that, coming to wholeness through it with our own story, through deeper listening to the quieter voices inside, the intuition in the heart, where am I feeling this? Inspiration in the heart, intuition in the gut, and instinct in the belly. Can we listen to those voices instead of what's going on around us that can be polarizing and distracting ultimately? So thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm wishing you all so much love. Please feel free to reach out and connect with me. I'm currently on Facebook and Instagram. And you can find me at writingthriving.com and find out what I'm up to. Sending you lots of love, and I'll speak to you again soon.